So I was in my bedroom this morning watching a press conference from the top health official in the country, who is named Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It's still kind of hard to swallow that that's the state of affairs, but that is the state of affairs. And his press conference was about autism. So, buckle up. So he was talking about a CDC study which showed that about 1 in 31 children in the United States, 8 to 12, or in that age range, are autistic. And he spent this press conference basically openly speculating as to what the causes of autism are. And the reasons he was throwing out there was that he believed that it was some sort of environmental factor. Now, the science as established is, at least those respected in the field, as to why there are so many cases now, largely say that it is due to better detection. That people in the medical field, due to study and research, now know what to look for. And so it's gone up from 1 in 160 cases to 1 in 31 because they can better identify the traits that are found across the whole spectrum. Some people think autism is like there's like a dial or something. You either like I'm like a 1 to 10 scale. You're either little autistic or really autistic, and the more autistic you are, the more it's hard for you to speak or hear. Like that's not how it works. Autism manifests in so many different ways. And so, with so many different manifestations of autism, it was difficult to be able to, list, oh, that's a trait, or that's a trait, or that's a trait. And so as the detection became better, it became easier for them to identify it, and more cases were identified, therefore increasing the numbers over time as the science and detection ability continued to improve. As for what is causing autism, the most consistently cited cause by scientists is genetics. Genetic factors is the most consistently reported cause for autism that they have the most evidence for. Now, this is very different than what RFK talked about today, because he talked about primarily environmental factors. He threw the story that in the 80s, we saw this big increase, and while there's this cult, and he calls it like a cult, there's this cult that says it was, actually better detection, and this is this drumbeat that they keep beating into the American people. It could actually be environmental factors that just started to turn around in the 1980s, where we saw this increase. Now, he keeps saying environmental factors. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't propose anything. He doesn't say it was this material or that material, because he doesn't have an environmental factor. He is just saying that he believes that the consensus that it was, that these numbers are increased due to better detection actually has to do with a different factor. And that different factor, which there could be another factor, but that other factor, before we have the evidence for it, it was environmental. It was environmental, and he's speculating in that direction. Let me show you guys a clip of him talking about this, where he talks about the reason we need to find this environmental factor because of the dangers that it poses for the youth and what it did to all these autistic children. Listen to RFK talk about how much he cares about the issue. Sure. Where he starts talking about the lives of autistic people.
This is an individual tragedy as well. Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. These are children who should not be suffering like this. These are kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. These are children who should not be suffering like this. These are kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism when they're 2 years old. And these are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And we have to recognize we are doing this to our children.
Yeah, my autistic friend just really likes trains. And that does not exempt him from paying taxes. I want you to be clear that RFK did not just announce that if you have autism, you no longer have to pay taxes, okay? The IRS will come for you. You cannot come with them like, look, I got the little puzzle piece on my hat. I don't have to pay that. No, that's not how that works, okay? That's not how that works. Putting aside the, I would say, not exactly great language in describing how autism affects people. Again, it's a wide spectrum, and I don't think this is good education about how autism affects people. Autism affects and manifests in many different ways. Sometimes it is in a way where it can be difficult for you to hold a job, and that could lead to you not paying taxes. But it can also manifest in a way where it's basically like indistinguishable from anybody else. Or it's in a way that is very difficult for you to ever justify the idea that they're not going to pay taxes or they can't use the toilet. And I know he's not saying that every single autistic person is like this, but the way he talks about it, I don't think is informing people. And again, I know this might be like cherry picking when we talk about Trump people, like, oh, this is harmful language. Harmful language, Dylan? This is the level we're talking about, considering the crises in our country right now. He is the top health official. And the way he talks about autistic people will affect how parents treat their autistic children.
Occurred is occurred.
Or treat their children.
Holy
Just period.
shit. He's talking about autistic people like they're mentally challenged vegetables. Why does he have a platform?
He has a platform because Trump gave him that platform as the top health official in the entire country. So if we have a health crisis, this is the man that has to manage it. Now, RFK keeps talking about this environmental factor, doesn't have evidence that it is an environmental factor. He doesn't present evidence in the CDC study that's an environmental factor. It is really, just to be clear, his gut feeling that is an environmental factor. Now, it might be he hasn't presented any evidence that that is the case, but maybe that is the case. Now, I don't know, and I don't think we're going to know by September, which is the deadline that RFK has set for the government to find out what causes autism. I am not kidding. This is a real thing. RFK, after the study was announced, where, and it's not like a revolutionary study. It's a study that just looks at mass data. It's not like it got all the different people of different, all these different people where autism manifests differently and studied them and tried to find common factors. No, it was just going through data. He's using this as a launch pad to declare that he's going to find out what causes autism by September of this year. So in months, we will know what causes autism according to our federal government. And it will be the American government, after gutting all of this money into research, all of this money into science and research in the medical field, as we're gutting that and laying people off, we will somehow hypercharge our research capacity and figure out what no other nation or scientific initiative in the world has, which is what is causing autism outside of what is already been researched and found about genetic factors, which RFK seemed to not really talk about a lot during this, and just the unproven environmental factors. I don't know what you guys expected with RFK as the health secretary. I don't know if you guys thought, okay, now he's made it to the top, he's going to sit down, be quiet, and just collect a check. This was all for the check. Or you thought that maybe now that he's in there, he's like, okay, I used this, all the lies that I've told about health and all of the misinformation that I've spread. Now that I'm here, I'm going to do some action. I'm going to do some good work. Maybe he's just going to concentrate on making kids work out. He's going to be like Michelle Obama and just tell all the fat kids to get on a treadmill. Who knows? Nope. We're still here. And he's still from now a bigger pedestal from ever, where I'm turning on the TV and all the different news channels are tuning in to what he's saying live. And where before he might have just been, being tuned into by some people on the podcast. Now it's all these major news channels, all these different wires that are being sent out from the more traditional media outlets, Bloomberg, AP, and such. All this information being spread on social media, clipped and shipped with the C-SPAN logo right there, the U.S. flag, and Department of Health flag right behind him, as he talks about the environmental factors of autism being discovered by September of this year. And when September comes and he hasn't settled the science, what's going to happen? Are we going to get him, A, eating crow, coming out in public saying we haven't figured it out, and we need to either, one, give up and just wait for, more credible scientists to figure it out, or B, kick the can down the road and have the same conversation a few months down the line? Or is he going to come out and say, look, we did a little bit of research. Some of these studies say maybe it was this. Sure, we'll just say it's this, okay? So we can have an answer, so we can fulfill a promise. A ridiculous promise. And you know what? This is a trend amongst the entirety of the Trump administration. It's like the it's like the QAnon mistake. One of the mistakes made by the people pushing Q, those like running the accounts and like making everybody, go crazy over these supposedly leaked like super secret documents. Thank you so much for the $5. I appreciate that. Where was I? There's this. Oh yeah, I was talking about QAnon. There was this QAnon post where they basically said, at this date, the happening will occur, or by this point, Donald Trump will be reinaugurated as president, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a bunch of stuff like confirmable promises that will or will not happen.
Microplastics and the paper slowly be suppressed and forgotten about. Can't hurt big oil.
Thank you so much for the $6. I appreciate it. Maybe it is microplastics. Who knows? Microplastics do be causing a lot of nonsense. I was talking about QAnon. Jesus Christ. So they would say a certain day that Donald Trump is going to be reinaugurated, where Donald Trump is going to have to be reinstalled into office. Okay? He's 100% going to. And then it didn't happen. And so Q took a lot of hit in the conspiracy community when it came to credibility, whatever credibility there is there, because there was like a date, this will happen, and then nothing happened. And Trump had the same problem with the 24-hour promise. Now, it was quick. It was easy politics. Great for the campaign trail. That's probably why he said it. It's probably why he made commitments about plans that he didn't have. But now that the chickens have come to roost, now a very small percentage of Americans actually believes Trump has any ability to bring an end to this war, right? The last polling I saw was 27%, and that number has certainly declined since then. So RFK coming out here, while the government is gutting public funds and subsidies to medical research and all sorts of different scientists across the country trying to, innovate in their field, in that moment, as RFK is being hoisted into power and we're having these changes of administration and all of these funds are being cut and all of these resources are being diverted away from where they were being diverted before to try to innovate in these fields. In that moment, after no other scientists in the world could figure it out, after no other country in the world through public subsidies could figure it out, after all these health institutions had failed to figure out the answer outside of genetic factors, RFK is going to figure it out by September. It's not a deliverable promise unless RFK can pull out a miracle or snake oil. I don't think he'll get the former. I do think maybe he'll get the latter, because I don't think he's going to eat crow. But we'll have to see what happens by September. If they just kick the can down the road, say we've made progress, or just say, well, it might be this, so let's just say it's this. We'll have to wait and see, but don't make these type of undeliverable promises. I already felt uncomfortable when I heard Biden say cure cancer by the end of his administration. I understand, like, at least there's like a goal to try for, but these types of promises, like, you're off the campaign trail, buddy. Try to limit yourself. Don't dig your own grave. My gosh, you guys are really throwing me off that whole segment with those donations. They're coming from everywhere about everything.